Hey chess friends, today we are reviewing some more beginner games. This beginner is in the 250 rating range, and we are going to review a couple of their games and see if we can try to help. If you are in the beginner range and you want help on your game, please be sure to let me know in the comments. Also, we have a Discord server. Please join. Link is in the description. All right, let's get going. All right, let's get started. We are going to review some of their games. We're going to look at just the losses because we learned the most from our losses. All right, and these are 15-10 games, so 15 minutes aside with 10-second increments. Let's get started. So the person we are helping today has the black pieces, and they are playing the move d6. I don't really like this move. Engine says it's, like, okay, giving a thumbs up, but really putting pawns directly in the center, especially if your opponent isn't going to fight for the center, getting a pawn in the center is really important. Yeah, so let's see what happens. Your opponent puts a pawn in the center since you didn't. And this is a pretty bad move right here. The reason why this is a bad move is because your knight really wants to go there. These squares right here, f6 and c6 if you are playing the black pieces, or c3 and f3 if you're playing white, those are prime spots for your knights. So you really want to leave those spots for your knights if possible. That's why this is a mistake. Plus, it also weakens your king. Anytime you push the pawn on f7 or f2, you know, respectively, anytime you push that pawn, you are weakening your king. Because the king, like, this location, these two locations right here, only have the king to defend them. So they are some of the weakest spots on the chessboard. So you never, ever, 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 ever want to push the pawns there. Starting out. Later in the game, maybe, but you definitely don't want to starting out. Your opponent takes the center for themselves. Yeah, if you don't fight for the center, they take it. And you can already see here, I just want you to look at the evaluation bar. Even though no pieces, no pawns have been exchanged, white has a 1-point advantage. So that's, if you take nothing else away from this first part of the game, take that away from it. You've lost the advantage because you are not fighting enough to control the center. Okay, so you do put a pawn in the center now, and you have a nice little pyramid pawn structure here. All right. And now we're finally getting to some piece development. So developing pieces really efficiently is kind of the name of the game with chess. I've talked about it in my previous videos for beginners, but the amount of pieces that you have developed correlates with how many threats you can generate and also just how well you can defend yourself. So you always need to be paying attention to where you're at with your development compared to your opponent. Your opponent has developed a piece, and you developed your knight. Technically, this is developing it. But again, as we said before, the knights really want to go on these squares right here. Also, in playing your knight to d7, you've made it hard to get your bishop out. Right? This bishop is already locked in your pawn chain, and now this bishop can't get out either, so your pieces are kind of tripping over themselves. They get another piece developed, so now they have two pieces developed. This knight is kind of where it wants to go. And now you're playing, so already pushing this pawn one move forward was incredibly weakening. This just is even more weakening. Plus, you're losing time here, because when you think about it, pawns can move 2 spaces on their first move. So you took 2 moves to do what you could have done in 1 move. So that's called losing a tempo. So you are losing time. And since each side just has a finite number of moves, when you're essentially giving your opponent a free move to do something extra to you when you do something like this. But in general, yeah, we really don't want to be pushing this pawn at all. Plus, if you look at this point, your opponent has 2 pieces developed, you have 1. So you are falling behind in development as well, which is why the eval now shows that white has a 2.6 advantage. Alright, now they go ahead and they play their queen forward, and their queen like that is a blunder. you don't want to develop your queen really before the rest of your pieces, but we should also, before making a move, we should kind of scan the board and see what's changed. If we look, this bishop is out of squares. The only square it could have gone back to is now covered by the queen, so you can just play f4 in this situation, and that bishop is trapped, and you're winning a bishop, which is why the eval bar has swung in your favor, right? So we need to be making sure to look at these moves. All the moves that you're making, by the way, you're playing a 15-minute game with 10-second increments, and you are above your starting time. And this is really bad. This is a sign that you are not using your time properly. Alright, so you missed that, and you play queen to e7. Again, this is another situation where your pieces are stumbling over each other. Your bishop here is locked out, sort of. Can't do anything. This bishop is locked in, so you're falling really far behind in development. They go ahead and they play knight to f3. Of course, this threat is still alive and on the table, where you can trap the bishop, so let's see what happens next. Alright, instead you end up playing b6, I imagine, to try to fianchetto this bishop or get it out some other way. But yeah, we're missing the fact still that this is a free bishop, just free for the taking. And again, a big reason of that is that you're not using any of your time. Since it's a 10-second increment and your time went up by 5 seconds, that means you only spent 5 seconds to make that move. And if you're playing, like, if you're planning on getting better at chess, you need to take time. If all you want to do is play bullet chess, then you should be playing bullet chess and not these time controls. Especially early on in the game. You know, you should be using a lot of time in the opening phase of the game, because if you don't do this phase right, everything else is going to fall apart. So you know, it's great that you have a ton of time later on if you're in trouble, but by that point it's kind of too late, so you need to be able to use your time wisely in this opening phase of the game. Alright, white goes ahead and takes there, relieving some of the tension. Still, I don't think the best move for them, but at any rate, you get your knight developed to f6, so you're starting to get developed, but you're still really far behind. Again, we look, and so you are a little bit behind development. Now, with that, white develops its final minor piece, so all the pieces are developed for white. And, you're playing a pawn move now, which I assume maybe you played it because if takes, maybe your rook becomes kind of active. But the problem is that we just need to count all the pieces that your opponent has. Again, it just comes back to development. You fell behind in development, and your opponent is generating way more threats than what you can really defend if you don't develop your pieces. So, since you're not as developed, they're jumping in. And, yeah, this is really bad. So when you move your queen aside like that, if you notice, the queen is in line with this bishop over here. So you always have to worry about discovered checks, or not discovered checks, discovered attacks, but I suppose checks are part of it. So the problem here with being in line with this bishop is that your opponent, I don't know if they find it or not, they don't, your opponent can just give a check here. You are forced to deal with the check, so you have to move aside, and they're just going to pick up your queen. Okay, this is a 10-minute game. 10 minutes per side, no increments. Here we go. The person we're helping has the black pieces again, so let's see. Once again, this is not fighting for control of the center. So, yeah, let's keep going. Again, completely weakening. This is, it's kind of really scary because it allows tactics. I mean, the queen could get in there and give check, and maybe pick up other pieces. It's very weakening, so you need to stop doing that move. And here, the best situation, again, you need to be developing your pieces. Get those pieces developed as soon as possible. Especially since white, your opponent, didn't bother to start developing a piece. It means that you have a chance to equalize and become better than your opponent on move 2. But instead, you see the eval bar here with not developing any pieces. It just went down by, 1.43. Again, no pieces have changed place. That's just how big a disadvantage you are at by playing those moves. And now we see you get this pawn structure, but it's really, again, the best defense is a good offense sometimes, and you need to be getting your pieces developed. If you really like a pawn structure like that, I would say also that you could maybe give, like, for white, you could maybe try London system, and black, maybe you could do a Caro Kann. It's fighting for the center there. London systems usually begin with getting the bishop developed right away, so you're developing your bishop on the second move, which is really good. And then from there, you are usually in some order, you're getting your knight developed, so your knight, your bishop, and your pawn are all staring at the square, exerting control. From there, usually what happens is you play the move e3, just structuring everything. You notice in this situation, you're still going to end up getting your pawn chain, your pyramid that you've been favoring eventually. But the difference being that your bishop is on the outside of the pawn chain where it can actually do some good. And yeah, so in this type of situation, you often can play this way, and this is the general position of the London system. So there's going to be a lot of people that will argue with me probably in the comments over whether or not you should be learning an opening. But I do think that a good thing about learning openings like this is that it really gets you in a good habit of developing your pieces to the correct squares. And you learn, like, okay, in the London system, this is where my minor pieces want to be, and you see we prioritize getting our minor pieces out as quickly as possible. Alright, but let's go jump back, since you're using the black pieces here. Let's just jump back and take a look at that. Alright. So this is not a bad square at all for the knight. It's just fine. Now, it's interesting, too, because if they ended up taking here and you retake, that might look bad because doubled pawns, but on the upside, it does give you a free file for your rook. Maybe your bishop can come out and get developed really quickly at some point. Maybe we push our d-pawn forward, supported by this new c-pawn, or maybe we push the c-pawn forward. So every move that happens on the chessboard has, like, there's a drawback, but there's also benefit to it. So, yeah, even in this situation. So they don't do that, they move their bishop back, but in doing so, that's really horrible for them, because earlier we talked about losing time, and this is just another situation where they moved their bishop out to b5 only to play back to d3 a move later. So they basically gave you a free move. You were able to develop your knight to c6, and they developed where they could have developed the bishop to right from the beginning. So you got a free move out of that. And recognizing tempo is something that's eventually going to help you to, like, get to a higher understanding of chess, right? So it's just something that you want to be aware of. Okay, this is great. Look at this. We've got two pieces here, side by side, and a piece in, one spot in between like that. This is a pattern that you should, recognize here. So let's see what you do. All right. Bishop to d6. So in this situation, you took 3 seconds. So again, you're not taking enough time. This is just a good fork right here between these two pieces, and white loses something. So I'm definitely thinking one of the issues is some basic level tactical awareness. You can do puzzles and things, though, that'll help you with that. And even on, if you go over to Lichess, you can do as many puzzles as you want for free, versus chess.com, where you need a paid account, really, to do a bunch. So, just some ideas. Okay, so you missed that. You play bishop to d6. I still like that you're developing your bishop, though. Just that you missed. This is a blunder for the reason we stated before. This threat didn't really go away, so they castled, and they're still giving you another opportunity to cash in and win a free piece. You decide to play knight to e7, developing, but again, you're not looking at what you have to do, or what the board is kind of screaming at you to do, right? And you made that in 4 seconds. So, yeah, I'd say if you took 30 seconds even and really scanned the board, you'd be able to see this. It's such an important phase of the game here to get right. So we can't just be systematic. We have to actually see what our opponent is doing and react to it. But you play knight to e7, I should say knight g to e7. They again miss the fact that this is on the table. And you miss it, and you go ahead and castle. The castling part is good, so... and again, they miss. So pretty much everything right now in the review is saying that it's a blunder, and that's because this never goes away. Alright, but now it kind of does. So by doing this, this is kind of like the ultimate miss, and at this point, something's going to happen here, and you're not going to get this really nice pawn move in. That was a move you made in 5 seconds. Move that you made in 2 seconds. So, yeah. I know I don't mean to, be, continually harping on it, but I just want you to know, to really feel the impact of what's happening here by making moves so quickly. Okay, so you capture towards the center. This is a really good move. Your king's a little bit unsafe with the f-pawn missing, but hey, we talk about drawbacks and we talk about the bonuses and the drawbacks of certain situations. Yes, your king's a little weak, but this rook of yours could become a monster here. I could definitely see a situation where maybe you move forward with this pawn and have a little pawn chain here, threaten the knight. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you're able to move this knight somewhere else. Maybe your queen's able to come in once the knight moves. Then you've got all kinds of things pointing over here. So yeah, a lot of good things happening. They play knight over to b5. They're trying to get your bishop. Let's see what you do. Okay, you move your queen forward. It's a little bit of a miss here. I had to take a moment to think why it's saying it's a miss, but it's because you're not playing e4. It really wants you to play e4, kick this guy out, and then be able to, if your queen was still positioned here, it would be able to swing in super, super quickly. Maybe your knight could go here, and your queen and your knight could plan a little checkmating attack right there, a little threat. But by moving the queen, it's kind of misplaced here, so that threat isn't on the table in the same way. Maybe you miss your opportunity to do things. Also, this is it might not be worth just allowing them to take this bishop off the board in this situation. So those are some things we maybe want to think about. All right. So now they play their knight to b5. This isn't a problem though. Oh, okay. So when pieces of our opponent are on our side of the board, so we see right here, we have 2 pieces. We're allowing them to gather their pieces on our side of the board. We need to kick these out. We need to get rid of these. I know it's saying this is an inaccuracy but seriously, we need to get these pieces off of our side of the board. We can't allow them to stay there. So that's just one of those principles, one of those things that you want to remember, is that whenever an opponent puts pieces on our side of the board, we want to get rid of them and drive them back off our side of the board if possible. All right, so this is going on. Okay, so now we do play a piece, play something to drive a piece off the board, but we're not looking at what our opponent is threatening. With the move e4, they are in fact threatening to win our knight over here. So yeah, it's just yeah, that's not great. All right. This is considered a miss. Stockfish really wants white to capture there first. So that's why it's considering it a miss for white. But whatever. It's still, they still end up taking a knight. You retake. They're getting their queen in there, but I mean, this is kind of... doesn't look that threatening, though. Obviously, they're threatening to checkmate you right here, but I think it's pretty easy to block, so let's just see. Oh, yeah, no. Okay. Sorry, I'm making random noises here, but I just think this is horrible because you're allowing this. They have to move back. In this situation, I really think you'd have to block it. Otherwise, I guess you could take with your queen on f5, thus, you know, thus defending. But yeah, it looks kind of grim. Okay, they gave you a free queen, so I guess they gifted you a queen, so go ahead and take it. And nope, okay. Yeah, so that's just a free queen, so just go ahead and take that. I think we're kind of good enough overall. This is another one of these situations where I mean, obviously the game goes up and down, but ultimately doesn't go in your favor, and I think we want to be, you know, paying attention to chess principles and really getting in the habit of doing chess principles. You know, I mentioned it before, but we want to put a pawn in the center, too, if our opponent isn't fighting for the center. We saw that in the first game we reviewed. You didn't put any pawns in the center, so your opponent took it for themselves. And we saw kind of what sort of effect that had on your chances. You know, we looked over at the evaluation bar, and it just shot up for your opponent. So we need to make sure that we're fighting for the center. We need to make sure to get our minor pieces off the starting squares and castled as soon as possible. So we want to castle our king to safety, right? We never really want to push pawns in front of our king because it's incredibly weakening to king safety. You can make, like, on the side, you can make a little escape hatch on the side for your king, just so you don't get back rank mated. But other than that, you want to keep the other pawns just stationed in front of the king so that it's safe. I'd say castle by move 10, if you can. Beyond that, rooks really like being on center files because, you know, there's this theme that control the center. A lot of the pieces kind of converge on the center, right? Like, they just naturally end up converging on the center. So we want to make sure that we're fighting for the center. That gives us a huge bonus. And moving our rooks to the center as well. And then another good thing is blunder checking before each move. Which I think really is something you need to make a habit of doing because you are missing so many things. And I think if you just make a habit of blunder checking each move, checking to make sure you're not blundering, but also checking to make sure that your opponent isn't blundering. You know, spend 15 seconds even, like the first thing you do after every single move that your opponent makes is scan the board. Look and see if any of their pieces are hanging and any of your pieces are hanging, right? So those are some little things that you can do. Beyond that, I mentioned it like 100 times by now. You have to slow down. You have to make sure that you are using your time wisely because you can't actually get better at chess by playing super fast. Once you are good at chess, once you have developed some intuition and some instincts, you can play fast. But the only way to get there is to first do the work first and make these, like, realizations. So you have to put in the work first before you can go fast. All right. But that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully it was valuable to you. If it was, please leave me a comment either on chess.com or leave me a comment here and let me know. And if you are, you other people out there in chess world, hello. If you are struggling as well and you're a beginner trying to improve your chess, please let me know. I would be happy to take a look at your games and do a similar sort of game review for you. All right, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye!